Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and his pure immaculate Ahlul Bayt. The journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a very long one, and most of us may never get there. And that's not that one shouldn't be concerned too much. As long as one's on the way, that alone will suffice. But to attain unity with Allah, it's a long journey. It takes years and years. But most people don't get there. Either because the direction is wrong, or the direction is correct, but the speed is too slow. The lifetime won't be able to fulfill their aims, or their objective is not in place. Direction-wise, we need that minimum taqwa plus. I'll explain what I mean by taqwa soon. Speed-wise, we have to master the important stage of muraqabah, which is a special kind of self-scrutiny of one's actions. But that has to be done in a specific way. And that will grant one speed along the path. And finally, one's objectives have to be clear. And one's objective is to dedicate oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These will all be explained, inshallah, during the course of this talk, inshallah. But before I start, just one or two terms I just want to define so that we know what we're talking about when I mention these terms. The first term is mukhlis. Mukhlis, which is the present participle of the gerund ikhlas. And when one dedicates one's actions for Allah's sake, one qualifies as a mukhlis. And that's a good thing to acquire. The next term is mukhlas, the past participle. And here one doesn't dedicate one's actions for Allah's sake, one dedicates oneself for Allah's sake. And that's the goal, to be mukhlas. That's what we're all aiming for in life. When one becomes mukhlas, the ulama use the term, they say he has reached the stage of fana fillah. These will be explained during the talk more. I just want to give a very general definition first, and then. One who reaches this stage of annihilation with respect to Allah has eliminated all traces of the ego, and the heart, the I, the spirit, is now a locus for Allah's attributes. One is wholly occupied by Allah's attributes. All traces of other than Allah have been eliminated. That's what fana fillah means. Once someone reaches the stage of mukhlasin or fana fillah, they are now called waliyullah, Allah's friend, literally. Because he manifests all attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no I. That's what waliyullah means. Sometimes they translate it as saint or these kind of things, but the Urafa's definition is this. Fana fillah, mukhlasin, waliyullah, these are all spiritual stations synonymous with one another. Okay, so let's start from the beginning and let's go through these steps and how we actually can become mukhlas. In steps 1 and 2 in spiritual wayfaring, these 2 steps only concern the limbs. They only concern external actions. One is accompanied with a niyyah, but the niyyah is dormant. It's present, but it's not properly activated yet during these first 2 steps. All that's important in steps 1 and 2 is for one to act externally with one's limbs. The first step is that of taqwa, and that's, by taqwa here we mean executing the wajibat and refraining from the muharramat. In order to succeed in step 1, you have to learn your duties and then act according to them. One's ustad in step 1 is one's manager. Whoever your manager is, you learn the necessary rulings that affect you during your daily routine, and you execute the wajibat and refrain from the muharramat. With practice, after a year, a bit less or a bit more, with practice though, this fulfillment of taqwa should become malakeh, should become second nature to you now. The niyyah is still dormant. It's present, but it's dormant. It's still not fully activated. One sign that taqwa has become malakeh, second nature, is when you don't even sin in your dreams. That can be a good sign to assess yourself whether you have made taqwa second nature to you or not. Now this level of taqwa in levels 1 and 2, these aren't perfection per se yet. You're still at stages that constitute a preface to perfection. It's a preliminary route to perfection. You're still not perfect. There's still a long way to go. But this first step is necessary for perfection. You're neither a mukhlis nor a mukhlas. You're not even an abid. You're not even a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The process of servitude hasn't started yet. Because to be an abid, to be a mukhlis, to be mukhlas, these are all functions of the niyyah. And that, although present, it's still in its rudimentary stages. But taqwa is a start, and you will be rewarded for it. But as one scholar said, you'll be given a heavenly stable. You'll be given the huris, the belman, the food, rivers, the drinks. That's it. It's a materialistic, a recreational heaven that you'll be rewarded if you suffice with taqwa. It's a bare minimum. And that's what you'll get in the hereafter. But you were created with the potential to become waliyullah, to become mukhlas. To suffice with taqwa is a pity. You deserve much more, you're worth much more. But if you suffice and confine yourself to taqwa, with the definition I gave of taqwa, he'll be given a recreational heaven in the hereafter. Now, there was one scholar, Iranian thinker, Dr. Ali Shariati. Many of you may have heard of him. And he would give these very good sound bites sometimes. And if he wouldn't explain them, people would get very confused. One of them was this. He said there's no difference between a mu'min and the kafir. So everyone will say, why then? Of course there must be a difference here. He said because the mu'min is after that those recreational, materialistic pleasures in heaven, in the hereafter, and the kafir is after those in this world. There's a very delicate point here. The point is that if you just suffice with taqwa, and suffice with just being called a mu'min, you're still losing out a lot. I think he wanted to bring this point, otherwise there are differences between the mu'min and the kafir. But he wants to highlight this delicate point. Now, assuming you do confine yourself to levels 1 and 2 of taqwa, you're a muttaqi, okay? But you'll be spiritually static in barzakh. And I think we've spoken about this before. You won't elevate further in barzakh. You'll be captivated in barzakh with your actions. You're a muttaqi, and you'll be given the heavenly stable. But your niyyah, it's not inconceivable that your niyyah, whilst you're a muttaqi in this world, your intention is still poor. Your divine focus is poor. You may be muttaqi and at the same time, these are not incompatible with one another. You can be a muttaqi with the definition we gave, but you can be drowned in the world in life, drowned in prestige, power, drowned in poor ethics with your friends, family, and so on and so forth. So, although you're a muttaqi, the nafs, the soul, still has to be slaughtered. You still have a long way to go. You're a muttaqi. You have the preface to perfection, but the nafs still has to be slaughtered. The nafs al-ammara. Because there's egoism all over, present within you. In chapter 2, you all know the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam and the cow, where in Bani Israel someone's been killed. Hazrat Musa alayhi salam tells them to bring a cow, so that they slaughter the cow, and with the bone of the cow they revive the dead person, and the dead person will say who killed them. You all know the external story, but this story has a lot of esoteric dimensions. The Quran states, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً. Verily Allah has ordered you to slaughter the cow. The cow is the nafsul ammara here. Bani Israel, they were all Sharia abiding at that time. But the nafs was prevalent, was predominant. The nafs had to be slaughtered. But just because they were Sharia abiding, that doesn't mean it's the end. So when Hazrat Musa said this, that the nafs al-ammara has to be slaughtered, they said, قَالُوا أَتَتَّخِذُنَا هُزُوًا. Are you taking us for a ride? Are you joking with us? They think just with taqwa, just acting in accordance with the Sharia, that's it. No, it's much more. The slaughtering process has to start now. And then it goes into details, la faridun wa la bikrun. Shouldn't be too old, shouldn't be too young. And all these have esoteric dimensions. But I won't go into that here. Perfection starts from step 3. In steps 1 and 2, Allah Ta'ala calls it a duty-bound form of taqwa. But from step 3 onwards, it's called a taqwa al-huduri, a form of intuitional taqwa now. It's nothing to do with the limbs, nothing to do with external actions anymore. From now on, until that route of perfection is acquired, everything occurs within. Naturally, you have to preserve steps 1 and 2, but from steps 3 onwards, everything is internal now. Step 3 is called the realm of إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Only actions that accord with niyyah are actions. Actions are judged in accordance with one's intention only. In this stage, actions are void, are futile in the spiritual sense, not in the fiqhi sense. They're futile if there's no accompanying niyyah. And it's in this stage that the dormant intention, which was present in 1 and 2, becomes activated. And this intention must evolve with the times, become stronger and stronger and stronger. From step 3 onwards, in order for actions to qualify as actions, these movements, these actions must enter a mold, a filter system, a modulator. Only then, when it enters the filter system, the output will be action, will be amalun saleh. Otherwise, if it doesn't go through this modulatory scheme, and we'll discuss what this modulatory scheme is, it's a niyyah, it's a criterion of niyyah which that movement has to go through, and you're the assessor. The output is true action. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. If this passing through this mold and filter system is not executed by you, the output is just a futile action. You can live for 80 years and all your actions were futile in the spiritual sense. In muraqabah, self-scrutiny of actions, we have to harmonize and tune that filter system with awareness, so that with every action that we do, it has to be taken through this niyyah, this intention, that mold, that modulatory system, in order for the output to be valuable spiritually. It's a realm of intentional paradigms, this realm. From 3 onwards, intentional paradigms. Paradigms being that scheme of intention that your actions have to be filtered through. We have a tradition that states, "An-niyatu afdalu min al-amal." Intentions are superior to actions. Allah, note, وَإِنَّ النِّيَّةَ هِيَ الْأَمَلُ. The intention is the action. The spirit of the action is the niyyah. Without it, actions are spiritless and hence futile spiritually. So you may go through a whole lifetime sufficing with steps 1 and 2, which is good, you have that taqwa, but all your actions are futile. Chapter 29:64, مَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. It was all a game, it was all a diversion, it was all amusement. You didn't tune your niyyah for it to evolve to go higher and higher. From steps 3 onwards, everything is to do with the niyyah. The only thing before that was you had to make taqwa and malakah. And that malakah has to be preserved. Thereafter, everything is within. It's all to do with one's intention and how one tunes it. Okay. Now what exactly is this filter system, this niyyah, this intention? And how should it be executed as a modulator? This realm of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ or muraqabah has 4 stages according to Al-Imam Tabatabai. And one has to go through these stages. It takes years, but one has to go through them slowly but surely. The point is this, that with every action, from action to action, you have to assess that action in accordance with the filter system, with your intention, with that mold. Now I'm going to give you the 4 molds, the 4 intention systems now, the paradigms. That with action to action to action, you have to judge that action with that paradigm you're in, depending on which stage of muraqabah you're in. In the first stage of muraqabah, it's a question of the paradigm, that filter system, that modulation is having obedience to Allah's laws, to Allah's wajibat, His muharramat. From every wajib action from every wajib to wajib action, here at this stage, you have to pay 100% attention in relation to Allah's obedience. You have to, with awareness, with the intention of obeying Allah wholeheartedly, with every wajib action that you do, with every haram action that you refrain from. This is the first stage of muraqabah. Don't forget, we want to build the intention. Intentions are a function of the I, the immaterial rational spirit. The I wants to become more and more dynamic. The dynamicity of the I is a function of the evolution of one's intention, one's presence of the heart. The higher that becomes, the more dynamic the I becomes, and vice versa. So here, one pays 100% attention to abstaining from the haram and executing the wajibat. So when you face a wajib action whose time has arrived, it goes through that system. The system here is to pay 100% attention to obey Allah. Once it goes through the system, you do the wajib wholeheartedly and at its right time. The aim of this system is for the wajibat and the muharramat, which you did already, not to be compromised with. Okay, there's more of a focus now on the wajibat and the muharramat. they're not compromised with anymore. You did them before, you used to execute them even before, but now there's special focus on them, on your behalf. And then once this is finished and you've managed to complete it, then you start the same process of obedience, wholehearted obedience, in relation to the mustahabat and the makruhat. From makruh to makruh, mustahab to mustahab, once the previous stage is completed. But that spirit of obedience has to grow with the times. In step 2 of muraqabah, the second stage, here even the mubahat enters the frame. Because here the filter process, the mold which actions have to go through, is this in accordance with Allah's pleasure or not? From action to action, even the mubah actions which are not wajib, but they're permissible, like watching television, for example, going to the cinema. Even here, for every action you do, will this acquire Allah's pleasure or not? Will this acquire Allah's pleasure or not? This takes time. None of these will be acquired in a week. This will take years and years. And the secret is to go very slowly. You can't do everything in accordance with Allah's pleasure from tomorrow. In this stage, you have to empty your actions from lahab and la'ib. Your actions have to be lahab free and la'ib free. Is Allah pleased with this or not? Is Allah pleased with this or not? Is Allah pleased from action to action during the day? Watching TV without going through this process will be futile. But watching TV can be spiritual at the same time if it goes through this modulatory scheme. Going to the cinema can be futile, it can be spiritual. Studying can be futile, but it can be spiritual. Is Allah pleased with this or not? Is Allah pleased with every time? Combing one's hair, eating, bathing, speaking with your friends, at the workplace, university, and everything. All these actions, which they're all mubah, but why does Islam assign certain supplications for combing one's hair? When waking up, when sleeping, when speaking, when eating, when leaving the house. It's because of that muraqabah, that scheme. All these have to be filtered. The output will be spiritually useful for you. But if it's done without any intention, without any filtering, it will be futile. You'll spend the whole day and it was all void spiritually. In steps 3 and 4, these both stages, 3 and 4, are alluded to this tradition from the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. U'budillah ka'annaka tarah. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you're seeing Him. فَإِنْ لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَى, and if you don't see Him, فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ, verily He is seeing you. It has two parts to it. One part is more difficult than the other. The second clause is easier, and that's stage 3. Every action that you do, have yaqeen that Allah is seeing you from action to action to action. You have to acknowledge with certitude, with yaqeen. When you pray, fast, sleep, when you help someone, eat something, go out, every action you do, Allah is seeing me, and I have yaqeen in relation to that. This is one step higher now. It's more difficult now. Stages 1 and 2 have to be perfected before this stage can lead to fruition. If one succeeds after a period of time and manages to master stage 3, and for stage 3 to become a malakah, second nature for one, then one can go into stage 4. Stage 4 was كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, as if you're seeing him. Here you have to use the imagination here. And that's okay. Imagining Allah is okay. This will become evident in a minute, what I mean by imagining Allah, but it's difficult to imagine Allah. But using that sense of imagination is very important for stage 4. كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ, as if you're seeing him now. At stage 3, that acquisition of certitude that Allah is watching over you, that's essential for stage 4 to be realized. That imagining Allah from action to action. Imagining Allah is seeing you. This imagining that Allah is seeing you, if mastered and becomes second nature, where you imagine Allah is with you from action to action, this is more than yaqeen. Here, the ulama call it al-fana al-khiyali. It's that fana which we've spoken about, but imaginative fana, not the real thing yet. You're still not in the presence of the real Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're in the presence of the imaginative Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This will become evident in a minute. Don't get confused. That fana al-khiyali with time is converted to al-fana al-shuhudi, where one, that ka'annaka tara, as if you're seeing him, becomes annaka tara. You are seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are in Allah's presence. With the eyes of the heart, you're now in Allah's presence, and fana has been realized. All traces of other than Allah have been eliminated. You're in His presence now. As Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam said, Lam a'abud Rabban lam ara. I don't worship a Rabb that I don't see. This is more than ka'annaka tara now. You're seeing the real thing. You're seeing the real Allah. Before fana, you were never in the presence of the real thing. It was either an imaginative Allah or a rational Allah at best, but it wasn't the real Allah. Now, from step 3 onwards, with that muraqabah, the aim is to become mukhlis dedicating our actions for Allah, and we become mukhlis by using that filter system. And then slowly journey towards becoming mukhlas. That's the whole aim of muraqabah here. And that's our objective, to become mukhlas, to acquire fana of Allah. Now here things get a bit complicated. Until you acquire that station of mukhlasin, until you become a mukhlas person, you may be successful in relation to being a mukhlis, but you're still a mushrik. All this time you're a mushrik. Now shirk, polytheism, there are two types. One is the disclosed type or open type of shirk, where you actually say this entity, you ascribe deity to this entity. And none of us have that kind of shirk. Here we mean the concealed form of shirk, shirkul khafi, where Allah's ibadah is compromised. You may be mukhlis. Until you become a mukhlas, you're still a mushrik. In chapter 1206, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. Most of those who have iman in Allah are mushriks of the concealed type. Even if you complete and perfect your ikhlas, you being a mukhlis person, you're still a mushrik. Why? Because the peak of your being a mukhlis, when you commit an action, it's summarized with this statement: I make myself sincere before Allah by means of this action. There are three curtains of shirk embedded in this statement. You're a true mukhlis, but you're a mushrik at the same time. Three curtains. First you say, I make myself sincere before Allah. Now this isn't the nafsul amara. With ikhlas, the nafsul amara goes. But even this positive I that you have is still a barrier for you to become mukhlas. This, even all traces of the I have to go. There should be no I if you want all traces of shirkul khafi to go. Then you say, I make myself sincere before Allah. That Allah which you're worshipping before acquiring the status of mukhlasin is not the real Allah. It's an Allah that you imagine, that you conceptualize, rationalize at best. It's not the real thing yet. That's another form of shirk. By means of this action, you're still attributing actions to yourself. And that's another form of shirk. These three barriers have to be eliminated, and the good I must die. It has to die, it has to be eliminated. But who does the eliminating? Who can kill this I? This spiritually good I that you have, and you are mukhlis, the I has to go. But who can get rid of it? You can't. Because of that hubbul dhati, that essential love you have in relation to the I. You can't commit suicide spiritually. because you love yourself, and that I that you are, you can't get rid of. It's not like physical suicide. It's impossible. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to do the eliminating, has to do the slaughtering. Now, I may have read this tradition before, but I want to focus on this, a certain part of this tradition, which demonstrates this point. And it's a hadith al-Qudsi, a sacred tradition, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Man talabani faqad wajadani. Whoever seeks me will find me. وَمَنْ وَجَدَنِي أَرَفَنِي. Whoever finds me will know me, acquire gnosis in relation to me. وَمَنْ عَرَفَنِي أَحَبَّنِي. Whoever acquires gnosis in relation to me will like me. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّنِي أَشَبَنِي. And whoever likes me will love me. If that liking persists, they'll love me. وَمَنْ أَشَغَنِي أَشَغْتُهُ. And whoever loves me, Allah, Allah, will love them. Now there are some actions which can precipitate that love for Allah. Here Salatul Layl has a very important role. Ziyarat al-Ashura and other things. These things have an important role from the beginning, but here, in that stage of acquiring that love, they're very essential, as long as the previous steps have been accomplished. وَمَنْ أَشَغَنِي أَشَغْتُهُ. Whoever loves me, Allah, I will love them. وَمَنْ أَشَغْتُهُ قَتَلْتُهُ. And whoever I, Allah, love, I shall kill them. It's killing that I, that last barrier. Allah will kill that I. وَمَنْ قَتَلْتُهُ فَعَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ. And whoever I kill, their diya, their blood money is upon me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ عَلَيَّ دِيَّتُهُ وَأَنَا دِيَّتُهُ. And whoever's blood money is upon me, I, Allah, am the blood money. This is synonymous to that fana. I, Allah, is the blood money. The heart is only occupied with Allah alone. All things other than Allah have been eliminated. For that final elimination of those final traces, Allah has to do it. You can't. And then Allah will assign a divine eye. And that, according to the logic of the Quran, is called Noor. In the Quran, when it speaks of that Noor which Allah grants you, it's this stage. In chapter 622, أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا. Where you were lifeless, Allah granted you life. And we've spoken that this life is hayatun tayyibah. And by granting you that, you have this nur. And it's this stage of fana, you becoming a mukhlas, that this tradition applies, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُنْتُ سَمْعَهُ الَّذِي يَسْمَعُ بِهِ. Because now, your heart is a locus of all of Allah's manifestations. All traces of other than Allah have gone. Allah says, I am His hearing by means of which my servant hears. وَبَصَرُهُ الَّذِي يُبْصِرُ بِهِ. I am his seeing, by means of which he sees. I am his tongue, by means of which he speaks. But Allah has to do the killing. This is called, the Oracle called this stage, قُرْبِ نَوَافِلِ. This is synonymous to fana. There's something higher called قُرْبِ فَرَائِض. Here, this is for one who has acquired fana. And he acquires this higher qurb, proximity, by making this fana second nature. Here you're doing the acquiring. But that's another, and that's what they call baqa billah in Irfani Segor. Let's not get too carried away. So on dying, when that eye goes, you reach the state of fana fillah, and now you are mukhlas. And this is open and feasible for everyone. We all have the potential to acquire this. However, acquiring this state of mukhlas is intermittent. It can easily go away. You have to try and maintain it. If you acquire this station of mukhlasin, fana fillah, you can't sin anymore. You become ma'soom. You know, ismat has many degrees to it. This is the minimum, by becoming mukhlas. Because now you are in the presence of the real thing. You're in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the imaginative Allah. It's not the rational Allah. You are seeing the real thing. You are mukhlas. It's impossible that you sin. The reason that we sin, we backbite, we lie, is because it's the imaginative Allah we're worshipping. It's the rational Allah. Sinning is very possible there. But at this stage, you can't sin. You're immune from sinning. It's not possible. Just to give an example, if I was to say to you, imagine there's a male, young, wild, hungry lion here. None of you would move from your seats. But if the real thing was to be here, you would all leave. Because you're seeing the real lion. If you see Allah, it doesn't make any sense to even, it's not even conceivable that you would sin. Before becoming a mukhlas, you can't even describe Allah, because it's not the real Allah. It's the imaginative Allah, the rational Allah, just concepts, which is okay. One has to go through this process. But it's not the real Allah. Whatever you describe, it's not the real thing. Once you become a mukhlas, whatever you say in relation to Allah, however you describe Him, it is true. Chapter 37, 159 and 160, Subhanallah, Amma yasifun. Allah is free from how they describe Him. Subhanallah. Allah is more sublime than how they describe Him. Glory be to Allah. He's far from what they describe Him as. Illa ibadallah al-mukhlasin. Except for the mukhlasin. Whatever, however they describe Allah, it's the real thing. Because they're in the presence of the real thing. The same concept, the same principle applies with our imams. Before becoming a mukhlas, it's an imaginative Amir al-Mu'minin you're speaking about. It's a rational Amir al-Mu'minin. You still haven't got to know the real Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Those traditions which say, if you go to ziyarah of, let's say, Imam Rida alayhi salam, arifan bihaqqih, then heaven is obligatory upon you. Well, of course it will be. That arifan bihaqqih is that mukhlasin. Well, of course, there's nothing but heaven. It's something wajib. It's a providential order, a takween order. Because you know the Imam, you can't sin. You can't go and follow a route other than that which the Imams have given. But before that, the Imams, you may praise them, you may say this, that and the other, but it's not the real thing yet. Knowing the Imams is a fitri issue, it's all within. It's not found in the books. It's not found by lecturers. There's a book called Elixir of Love, and they speak about an Arif called Rajab Ali Khayyat. It's written by Muhammad Ray Shahri. I've spoken about this book before. It has many faults with it. And my Ustad has written a book against this book. And it's been published too. My Ustad went and saw Mr. Ray Shahri with his book, which that book is full of doctrinal and other errors. And he went and told Mr. Ray Shahri, I won't publish my book on the condition that you don't deliver English translations of this book abroad. If you don't send them abroad, because this Ori Kiani is his name, he was worried that those abroad, Muslims abroad, will misunderstand Islam by means of this book, because it has it has a very wrong image of true Irfan. Ori Shahid didn't accept. Anyway, they discussed for 1 hour about the book, and my Ustad said, I have yaqeen that Mr. Ray Shahid didn't write this book. And that's probably true, because Ray Shahid has a big centre. Those working under him usually do the compiling, because my Ustad said he didn't have an idea on many things, where different parts of the stories are, which part of the book they are. Anyway, in that book, Rajab Ali Khayyat has been assigned with and has been granted so many spiritual stations, which is many of them are problematic. There are many people, and I've seen these people, who knew Rajab Ali Khayyat, and everyone said he was sincere. And he was a sincere, mukhlis person. But these stations given to him in this book are totally out of hand. Now, Allama Muhammad Hussain Tehrani, who was a student of Allama Tabataba'i's, he would always write whatever he would see, whatever he would experience, he would write. And his memoirs exist, his handwriting. And he relates something very important. He said once Rajab Ali Khayyat came to see Sayyid Ali Qadi, who's the Ustad of Allama Tabatabai, to the Bahjat, a very important Arif, in Najaf. Rajab Ali Khayyat came and said to Ali Qazi, all my life I have only acquired one karama, one. That elixir of love mentions 50 incredible things, which are just totally, well, if you read them, the mind will just, go. Rajab Ali Khayyat himself is saying to Ali Qazi that I've only acquired one karama throughout my life, and that is being able to speak with plants. And even that has been taken away from me recently. Can you give me any instructions so that this karama can come back? Ali Ghazi said, I am empty-handed. I have nothing to give you. And there was a reason he said that. Anyway, Raja Ali Khayyat went to the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then came back to Ali Ghazi, and said to Ali Ghazi, I saw Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the thing which you didn't give me, I asked from him. I saw Amir al-Mu'mineen. And then Ali Ghazi said, you saw the Imam of your nafs. It was an imaginative Imam, not the real Imam. That was your own construct that you saw. And then when Raja Ali Khayyat left, Ali Ghazi said, this man is an other Ihsan Ahsa'i, which was an incredible statement to make. Maybe even Ali Ghazi went a bit over the top with that statement. But then, who Ihsan Ahsa'i was and everything, we won't go into that. So, the point is that before becoming a mukhlas, the Allah that you're worshipping is imaginative or rational, but it doesn't matter. You have to go through that route. The Imams aren't the real thing either. Becoming mukhlas is the goal. Everything else is just a means. Don't even suffice with becoming mukhlis. If you pray Salatul Layl in order to acquire different rewards, you're a mushrik. If you give sadaqah to relieve yourself of burden, you're a mushrik. Only Allah has to occupy your heart, irrespective of whether you get the reward or not, irrespective of the after results. Allah has to occupy your heart. Okay, I think I'll stop there. I'll stop on Bahara Muhammad
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you have any questions. If no one has a question, I have a question. You mentioned that if we take our actions through that filter of niyyat, we can make him be more valuable. Just like you mentioned, like studying or going to the movies. Can you give an example how, for example, doing, like going to the movies, if you don't put it through that system, can be unvaluable, and how can we practice putting it through that system?
Sometimes you go to the movies for the sake of the film, just to see it. And there's no underlying purpose, but just to have a good time. But sometimes, for example, you go with your wife to please her, for Allah's sake. Or you go for another purpose. For example, you want to study this movie to give it analysis and related to maybe religious dimensions or non-religious dimensions. But that study is for Allah's sake, once again. Allah has to be in the equation. Sometimes you study all your life for the sake of medicine, for the sake of curing patients. That's still not perfect yet. But sometimes you study medicine for the sake of Allah. You cure for the sake of Allah. There's a difference there. Non-Muslims can have the former route of action, but only refined Muslims who can go higher and higher. If you go through the first route of action, where there's no Allah in the equation, you'll be benefited in this world. Allah will give you your due in this world. You make an effort and you will be given your due in this world. But in the hereafter, you're empty. You have nothing. And that verse of the Quran which says, Man kana fi dunya a'ma, is that right?
كان في هذه أعمار
Yeah, Man kana fi hadhihi a'ma wa fil akhirati a'ma, is that right? Yeah. Wa huwa fil akhirati a'ma. One who's blind in this world will be blind in the hereafter. Nothing to do with physical blindness. If you haven't acquired anything Allah-wise along that the spiritual route, if you haven't acquired anything in this world, you'll be empty-handed in the hereafter. You take with you whatever you've acquired in this world with you to the hereafter. So there was. Sorry.
This might sound a little bit off track, but might be related to this discussion if you think it helps us to understand. Some people, when they discuss the journey toward Allah, they kind of finish it by the help that you do to other people, whatever service that you provide for other people, help that you offer to other in need people, and that is kind of the ultimate manifestation of the reaching to Allah's satisfaction. And that by itself is an attitude toward everything that when they want to discuss of what is being abed, what is being zahid, what is being mu'min, it all boils down how much help you offer to the other entities, other individuals and all that. But when I listen to your perspective of what is this journey, I see mainly you or a person, the core and the center of this whole discussion. In other words, it's all about you and what you do and what you achieve and where you get. And other things, including serving others and helping others and donating to others and this and that and caring about others and يؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة and things like that, are not central to this discussion.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, what I presented, everything is within. Perfection is within. Helping people is a movement, is an action. It has to go through that niyyah scheme. The stronger and more filtering occurs, the stronger it happens, the action will be better, the output. You can help so that that person you're helping be pleased. You won't grow spiritually, but you can help merely to acquire Allah's pleasure, and if that person never thanks you, it won't bother you a single bit, because you truly did it for Allah's sake. That's different for someone who helps a patient, for example, or someone in need. But if that person doesn't say thank you, he or she will get upset from it. So everything, the criteria is within. These actions have to be assessed in accordance with one's intentions. For example, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam gives food to the poor. We give food to the poor. Externally, it's the same action. A kafir gives food to the poor. All three are the same action exactly. But where Amir al-Mu'mineen, why he's higher is because of that the fact that only Allah is in the equation when He gives something. If that person even becomes an enemy to you or never thanks you, doesn't matter. I did it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once Ayatollah Misbah gave a very incredible point just to highlight this in this ethics lesson. He said, when you do an action for the purpose of Allah alone, it should be such that even if you go to hell, okay, even if you go to hell, you don't expect the reward of that action at all, because you did only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are very high stations one has to acquire. Only Allah has to be in the equation. If you pollute it with other things, now naturally most of us will never get there. It doesn't matter. As long as you're on the route, you're making an effort. You're improving from day to day. That's the way.
Can I ask one more
Yes,
question?
yes.
In the same subject about helping people, when we see somebody who is poor or in need of something,
Yes.
we naturally feel bad for them.
Yes.
To avoid that pain, we kind of have a tendency to help, so we actually don't feel bad about them.
Yes.
And so when you say Imam Ali, when he was helping people, it was only for the sake of God.
Yes.
Does that mean that you didn't have these kind of feelings about?
There was no he.
There was
Yes. كنت بصره الذي يبصر به كنت لسانه الذي Okay, وصلى الله على محمد